that Sam Altman had been fired, but they also told him that he had been ousted from the board. Now, from then, really, a series of ideas came through. There was a lot of skepticism in terms of what really had made Sam Altman got fired. Unfortunately, there is less information from the board. I saw a letter that was posted by Elon Musk saying that it had been sent to him, and there were quite some allegations that Sam Altman and Greg had really diverted the focus of the company from a no-profit company, and then from the focus of pursuing AGI to really basically looking for money, finding ways to survive, things like that. So it's partly why in courts it is speculated that the board could have ousted Sam Altman. However, his departure from OpenAI, of course, came with a lot of uproar within OpenAI itself, because now the CTO of OpenAI had been temporarily appointed as the CEO, as the interim CEO. And then you saw a lot of workers, staff within OpenAI signing a treaty that they are going to resign in case this gentleman is not actually brought back into the company. Now, at the same time, this particular gentleman had secured a job within Microsoft because, and I guess this is really where the power of social media is. Sam Altman was making quite a number of tweets on his Twitter, on his they call him on his X platform, on his X account. He was making a lot of tweets, making a lot of tweets like OpenAI is nothing without its staff. You know, like everyone was generally making those sorts of tweets until they, I think, finally reached a resolution and they agreed to bring him back into the company. But and
I thought it was because people had actually signed the petition, because I know it's about 700 people, workers that were revolting and saying we're gonna go off if this guy doesn't come back. And yes, go ahead.
So they revolted, and of course they brought him back into the company. A resolution was reached, but I think at the peril of the board, which was in courts resolved. It is now said that OpenAI has a new board. No one knows really what that means for the new direction of OpenAI, because you can imagine that OpenAI is a company that was founded on the basis of having a transparent AI revolution. As far as Elon Musk is concerned, that was his argument, that we need a non-for-profit company that is building AI systems at a very advanced level, but in a very transparent way. Hence,
you know what is amazing? What is amazing is that when I was listening to Sam Altman, one of the things he was saying was that people are excited about ChatGPT 3.5, and then he moved around almost every part of the world during his tour, and he was advocating for ChatGPT 4. And while they were asking him about ChatGPT 4, he said we're now testing ChatGPT 5. Think about that. And actually, in his estimation, he said ChatGPT may actually go up to ChatGPT 9. Think about that. Now imagine GPT. Now what's going to be happen with GPT 9? Think about that. If ChatGPT 3.5 can be able to do amazing things, ChatGPT 4 is doing amazing things, including deepfakes and audios and mimicking songs and stuff like that, and taking pictures and arts. I have one of my colleagues who work here with suigeneris, the gifted young man, Balamaze Moses, who actually uses it to do arts, a lot of art craft and even designing. He showed me pictures of paintings, that ChatGPT had done, incredible, beautiful pieces. So I'm imagining, and the world has not discovered that. And that's the ignorance that we have. Even when I was in Europe, by the way, I was amazed that even most Europeans couldn't comprehend what ChatGPT. People know about Google and stuff, but ChatGPT has broken ground, yes, but many people use it in simple terms, write love letters or ask me basic things. They forget the depth at which ChatGPT and the power and the strength at which ChatGPT can be able to comprehend issues. I think it was either Harvard was also testing ChatGPT in school, now that it can actually be used to teach, okay, and people can comprehend. So I think the power and the argument of ChatGPT is something that we're going to live with, notwithstanding the fact that almost all these aspects of AI have actually been replicated in almost everything we use now, the basic things of phones, computers, and the like. So I would like you to explore more a little bit on the potential and the power of ChatGPT. Yes.
It's what you've just described is an aspect of artificial intelligence which we call generative AI, the ability for AI to really generate and come up with new sets of information based on data that has been fed into it. So, for example, DALL-E, Stable Diffusion, and quite a lot of other applications are the ones that are currently being used to create pictures, new art. In fact, I have a friend of mine in Nairobi. He's running something called Transcend Technologies, and he's building something called a neurosymbolic AI. His argument is he's arguing for a concept called Afrofuturism, whereby he's generally saying that most of the models that we are using, for example, like GPT-4 and GPT 3.0, are models that were built with Western world in mind.
Yes.
So the idea is that the language used, last time we were discussing that it is very easy to diagnose ChatGPT with political correctness and stuff like that, because there is a certain sort of culture that and language within which these particular models are built. So his major concept is really how can we build models that have the African context in mind. How can we be able to generate, build data sets really that can be freely available, and then anybody within the African context can actually use those data sets, create new models, stuff like that. Yeah, but generally, talking about the capability of AI, I think it was a Michigan professor called Hintze, Aaron Hintze, and he categorized the capabilities of AI and four major categories, whatever. So he discussed that whereas people generally would refer to AI within the narrow range or the strong range, that is the narrow AI, and then the strong range meant for AGI, artificial general intelligence. He went further that whereas usually that is the normal categorization, there is a broader categorization that can really show us the power of AI at a very advanced level. So he discusses things like, he categorizes it among four. The first categorization he gives is reactive machines. And under there he says that here you're dealing with computer systems or AI systems that are task specific. So the input always gives out the same output. It follows partly the law of reproducibility, that you're always guaranteed that there is going to be the same sort of output in that sort of regard. And he gives an example of the IBM Deep Blue and Deep what? Those two computers.
Yes, Deep Blue and okay, the one that played with the Deep Blue is Gary Kasparov.
There was Deep Blue.
It was Deep Blue that played with Gary Kasparov.
Okay, there is another term that there is another computer, because the first one came out in 1989, and then later on he faced Deep Blue within the 97s, 96. So he was saying, like, at that time you're dealing with a situation in which this computer is fed a lot of information, and then it uses that information to give indicators, develop patterns, things like that. It's the same way reactive machines is the same way like Netflix works. You go there, all shopping systems, you go there, you watch a particular set of movies, so it records your patterns, and based on that pattern, it gives recommendations that this is actually what you could be interested in, and there they under reactive machines there is a component of super AI that as a human being you do not have consciously all the information about your life that you would like to react on. So we move. There are many things that we do subconsciously.
Right.
Like for now, I don't know how many times I have bent, something like that, moved my hands.
Right.
So I don't really have that. I might not have the ability, but I don't have the efficiency.
Listen, stop there. And that question was asked of Sam Almat, and I said, okay, we know that there's a point that these computers replicate, or that algorithm pattern. But his question was, would there be a time where they'll become super intelligent?
Yeah.
And that question was posed of him, and he relaxed a bit, and he actually admitted that there will be a possibility when these things will become super intelligent.
Yeah.
That scared me. Doesn't that scare you?
It doesn't scare me.
Why? Because the argument is that super intelligent in the sense that they will probably outsmart us. Actually, his concern was that there will be a time when these AIs will have the ability to generate things that are not replicated or have actually been replicated before. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Like
they've not been existent before, because the argument is that
I guess that has already happened partly. For example, we used AI to develop a new sort of polygon that was non-existent before. Like you see hexagon, octagon, nonagon. AI came up with a new sort of polygon that was actually.
And for him, that was the danger. He said, when that comes, because at that point, you and I as human beings have not envisaged that or picturized it or even thought about it, and this AI has the ability now to do that. And are we seeing an escape of AI from the hands of human beings? Are we seeing that now AI is going to overtake the world? And that's the bigger question.
Yes. So of course, Sam Altman, like he said earlier in your submission, he said that at one time we shall have something like GPT-9. Now there is a lot. I think it was which gentleman who said that there is no evidence from the future. We can only use the present information to anticipate what the future could look like. So the future of AI could involve, of course, development of systems that supersede human capabilities, that can create information, come up with new sets of author books on their own. But all that is like at the extreme of imagination. There is of course no limit to possibilities. Of course, especially with generative AI. Imagine a world in which I just need your face and I can craft a video AI generated with you dancing, doing everything with just your face.
I know.
Deep fakes. Now that's already happening.
That's already happening.
Who knew that that it would actually be able to happen?
True.
So the idea is that there is a potential to everything. And I remember watching an interview of Steve Jobs in 1995. He was being asked about the power of the internet or web activity and stuff like that, and he said that more than ever before we now see that the computer has taken on a new advancement. It has taken on a new value proposition from just doing computation to communication. Now, who knew in 1995, back in the days, that computers are going to be able, or the web is actually going to be able to connect the world, that you're going to be able to receive information right now. What is happening in America, you can get it you can get it live. You get it in less than a minute. So the idea really is that with technological advancement and the digital revolution, at the moment it has not really been defined what the limit could be. It is endless possibilities.
This is what I noted when I was interacting with Sam Altman in terms of GPT-4. His argument in terms of GPT-4 was saying it's more self-centered, self-cornered, self-enterprising, if I may use that word. And then he says, but see, look ahead for GPT-5 and 6 and beyond. That is what he said. The idea to have what they call self-generation new AIs that are going to happen. And then they were asking him, he made these 3 points, which I wanted you to explore, in terms of the advantages of AI as we speak today, in terms of why AI makes a better case for anything, against anything. He said, number one, the cost of intelligence as an advantage. Think about that. The cost of intelligence is going to be replicated across the entire world. You know what that means? Now, intelligence is no longer a privy of students from Harvard or Stanford or perhaps Yale. You know, it's now going to be replicated everywhere. What a Harvard guy can do, a guy from somewhere, Ivukura University can as well do. And then the aspect of energy, the replication of energy, the fact that these AIs are going to, will drive energy machines, and so where Africa has actually been left behind, for example, because of what do you call that, the first industrialization, then the second industrialization, where we have not caught up even to make things like needles and stuff like that. With the generation of AI, it's gonna be replicated everywhere. What you call a frog leap, in terms of frog leaping. So countries like Africa can easily frog leap because of that advantage. And others, the other argument is the aspect of distribution of wealth on all fronts. His argument was that AI will be able to duplicate wealth, so there will not be poor people or poor countries anymore, because, like I said, what can be done in the US would either be done in Africa or in Uganda for that purpose. So these were very strong points in my opinion. And then the issues that I also followed up in terms of the one you talked about, the defect software, the one they call the machine tube. That's what they call the machine tube. And then the Larry Bird, which talks about voice software, which can be able to get your voice and then put it on someone's head and then look like you're speaking, and they're like, oh my goodness, was this Lubogo saying this? Did he say that? Yet it is pure, AI stuff. And then we are looking out at some interesting AIs in as far as research. For us, we in suigeneris, we pride in research. Then he talked about things like QuickBot or things like Notion, which many people, by the way, may not really understand in terms of that composition. But yes, you can follow up. I just wanted to remind myself of the notes that I'd taken when I was having that kind of discussion. Yes.
I guess the three major advantages that you have noted from Sam Altman are grossly tainted with also some lots of assumptions. Remember, we are not just like you say, like suigeneris, you pride yourself in research. We are alive to the fact that ability that is supplied by technology does not necessarily translate into profitability. The idea is that there are other factors beyond just technology that can contribute to wealth distribution, that can contribute to energy generation. The first point you made was what?
Was energy. First of all, was energy. The other was wealth, and then the other had to do with intelligence.
Intelligence.
Yes.
So with all those factors, really, I would agree with him in one way and then disagree with him in another. So even though I started from the disagreement perspective, that there are factors really that shape society beyond just its technology. For example, when Bell came up with the phone in March in the 1800s, you could actually think that the communication revolution would render isolation less power. You could think that now that people can communicate over large distances, or even the digital revolution, you could think that now I can chat with Lubogo. Alaska, you understand? He's in Uganda. It's just through the internet we can chat. I'm just almost a second away from him. You could think that there is isolation has been dealt away with. The world is much more connected. People are now much more engaging on the internet and stuff like that. To some extent, that has happened. But wisdom and experience know the hazards, the dangers that have come, or the dangers that have prevailed despite the digital revolution. We have seen kids committing a lot of suicide on Instagram. You understand? Talking of isolation, despite having access to digital tools, despite having access to phones and stuff like that. So isolation has not gone away, despite the fact that digitization is here. So wealth or poverty might not magically disappear, despite the fact that a lot of knowledge is around, or despite the fact that there is massive technology that is happening, because there are different ideas that make up a social construct beyond just one particular piece of technology. You get what I mean?
I do.
So, for example, and again, Sam Altman would argue for a utopia. I would take it to that extent, that is perpetuated by perhaps people like Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum, where they envision like a one world government, perhaps to some level, or a one world system in which, in Klaus Schwab's own words, where it's not a unipolar system, where the US is almost controlling a lot around the world, but there is some level of, in quotes, equal participation. So in such a system where the World Economic Forum is going to assign some credits and come up with policy that is influencing the world, and to some level, let's say they argue for equal distribution of resources, maybe it is possible for you to argue for wealth distribution that is a little bit inclusive or democratized in that sense, or you're able to argue for knowledge, for intelligence and energy in that sort of regard. But as long as we are having this beautiful world, the way it is structured, where you have different heads of state making decisions for their own countries, then at the end of the day, you are likely not really going to achieve a uniform wealth distribution. The AI itself, as an enabler, can enhance that, in a sense that if you have AI in your country well embraced, there are things that will get better. You understand? But you can see that if we, like you've rightly said, if we cannot even make safety pins, if we cannot even make razor blades, then what is going to make Africa special with AI? You get it? There are systems in Africa, there is a mindset in Africa that has made development quite impossible for the past 400 years. People argue, for example, that blacks built America, and I would believe that in the context that in the context that blacks were fetched from Africa, taken to work within the industries in America, but there were more blacks at the time in Africa than in America itself. There were more blacks.
Right.
The population in Africa for the same blacks was much more than that in the US.
Right.
But Africa did not develop at the same level, at the same rate than US. Why? Because the blacks that were taken to the United States, they were fitting within a certain social contract. There is an environment that certain geniuses had planned. In that these particular blacks, or in quote slaves, were just complementing what had been organized, which is not the same.
I would understand, Mr. Katende, your argument in terms of that. I would beg to disagree in the sense that you must understand that even the countries where they got hold of these black guys and took them, there's a lot of history that has been denied. I don't know if you're aware about that. I would invite you to read a book.
What's your argument?
I'm coming. I would invite you to read a book called The Secret Relationship Between Jews and the Gentiles. Yeah, Jews and the blacks, right? And written by, of course, your friend. You know him, Louis Farrakhan. You'll argue that this
my
is
enemy.
I'm not sure if he's your enemy, but you like Malcolm X. Who is this guy anyway?
No. Actually, Louis Farrakhan was one of the guys that jubilated. But
that's what you're saying, and you're going to say he's not who killed Malcolm X.
No, he's not the one who killed Malcolm. He's not the one. But
I mean, there are those allusions, you know.
But
but the point is this, that you must understand that there's a part of history. Even when you listen to Dr. Khalid Mohammed, by the way, there's a part of history that has been systematically denied of us. When you watch movies like the great debaters. Yeah, a story that can be told by
I'm aware of that history.
Yes, that certain celebrated substantive works that had been done by black men and have been relegated to history because they don't want to shine that way.
Yeah.
Even Africa in itself as a center of civilization, you have to comprehend that Africa, by the way, was the cradle of civilization. But that part of history was also cut off.
Yeah.
Obviously, the other question you're going to pose is, if they were that good, what happened to them? Why did they surrender their
By the way, my argument is not really meant to discredit the innovativeness of
black man.
Africa.
Okay.
The idea really, we call it Alka Blanc, right? Alka Blanc. That's how Africa was called before being renamed after Afrikaners. And it's really a land, a typical sort of Eden. That's how kind of people are envisioning it. I'm aware that people like our ancestors, like this gentleman who attacked Rome with African elephants through the Swiss Alps. It was really, his name has run out of my mind, but one of the guys that really shine. We're aware of what Mansa Musa caused when he made that pilgrimage to Mecca with lots of gold, with lots of, so African civil Africa and its history.
And the building of the what? Those guys in Egypt.
Pyramids, pyramids of Giza and the like.
Yeah.
So ideally, the potential of Africa and its role within civilization, even in terms of the gospel, many Pan-Africans are not alive to the fact that the gospel was in Africa before it came to Europe.
I know, I saw that. Baramaza keeps telling me that, left, right, and center.
Yeah, it was in Africa before it came to Europe. So anyway, my point was not really to discredit Africa. My point was really to show how what really has changed. You understand? Eh? My point was to show really that the technologies that, especially in modern history, there was the period of Renaissance, search for knowledge, where you saw people like Prince Henry the Navigator sending people across the East African coast, finding the sea routes to India. At least in Europe, you saw the Portuguese conquest then come through the East African coast. A lot of things were happening in Europe, but these guys were basically getting resources out of Africa and capitalizing on the fact that African rulers were not very organized, they could not see far. That is why some of them were, of course, selling their people, and others were not really able to take part.
Let me tell you a story, and again, you see, I'm an advocate of black integrity in one way or the other. I believe in what Gavin Marcus said, that the world has made black being a vice, and I intend to make it a virtue. And the argument, you see, you must comprehend that even this argument of and we're not losing the debate, but I'm just trying to say to rebut some of the ideologies, is that systematic, racialization of the black man and everything black was intended really to renegade everything that had to start with black. But we know for a fact, for example, that what do you call this surgery when you operate one cesarean, was actually started in Bunyoro. In Bunyoro of all places, in Uganda. Think about that. In the entire world. So we know for a fact that there's a certain part of history. There is a proverb, an African proverb, that the day the hunter stops writing about the lion when he goes to hunt it, the day the lion learns to write about its story rather than depend on the hunter, is the day history will change. Because he will come, because the white man took advantage of us, in spite of the fact that writing started, in Africa and stuff like that. But the fact that lots of information, where you actually made that point, that AI has the potential to bias because the people who are feeding it with information that is substantially biased. So that cut off of knowledge, and that's the reason why they say that if you want to hide something from a black man, put it in a book. Obviously, the other question is, what was happening? If you're so intelligent at one time, why were you negligent enough for you to comprehend and understand that here is the guy? But again, when you listen to the likes of Louis Farrakhan and the likes of Khalid Mohammed, they have dispositions in terms of what their minister told them, Elijah Muhammad. But that's another debate.
Anyway, I see you don't have an actual point in disputing what I said. I mean, the fact that, for example, the C-section came from Bunyoro does not discredit the truth that at some point within the African history we had negligent leaders. like currently is happening. So what you're doing is really to expound on the integrity of the black man, which something which is stand for. I mean, Napoleon Bonaparte said that history is a lie agreed upon, and ironically, there is no evidence that he said that.
Right,
but
yes,
but we're I was still giving my point that for sure it takes more than just the technology.
Okay. Do you realize? Do you comprehend the fact that in spite of other countries like China, and the Asian tigers that you're probably aware, were quite left behind, including India, for a certain time, and they were able to catch up right now, and their forces to reckon with.
Yes.
You understand that, and you comprehend that.
Yes.
So the point I'm trying to make
let's pay attention to the process that led to rather the objective reasons that made it a reality that China has transitioned from what it was 30 years back and what it took America hundreds of years to...
Absolutely.
You know, China, I think Xi Jinping, China has something called the century of humiliation. These guys, if you look at the first Opium War, the second Opium War, China is controlling China is dealing with, let's say, like the UK. And it's controlling the ingredient that is making very tasty tea. That makes tea tasty around the world during that time, and it is selling this particular ingredient at a very expensive rate, and it is trading in a very unique currency, and the UK feels threatened. So what they do, they come to India, to China, they start to sell opium. They sell opium to the public so that they can get the currency and then come back and trade with China.
So do you understand?
So at the end of the day, like these people sat down, the Chinese. They lost the first Opium War. The second Opium War was almost a humiliation, where they were telling them that to write an apology, pay for all the damages of the war, and eventually give up Hong Kong. Now, the leadership of China, I won't say that it happened during Mao Zedong and his communist ideologies, but at least right now, if you look at in quotes, the Chinese dictatorship, which is running things, there are particular mistakes they have learned from in the past.
Okay.
How can...
And that's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
You see, and that's you see, if we begin trivializing on what happened and what can never happen, then we'll never take a step. And that's the argument I'm trying to make.
So you're trying to say that there is hope, given that China has changed. So someone can be right that there's
hope. There's
a
proverb that used to go that, you see, that China were kept captive for a long time, by the British and the likes, until they learned to say the word no. It's a very thing, and also because of one of the things that we're blaming. I'll give a scenario to make a comparison. Dr. Khalid was asked one time that, why do you, if you disagree with every white man or everything that a white man says, what's your comment about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., MLK, right? And he said, the only unfortunate thing about MLK was that his good heart made him, miss or perhaps pass over a good gesture to a people who he did not know that were inherently bad. And I don't believe that statement anyway.
Yeah.
But I just want you to understand. I just want you to understand that we have to learn that, in spite of the fact that we have potential as Africans and black people, we inherently believe some of the big lies, right, that were propagated by the colonialists and the white man, and that's why we end up losing everything and surrendering everything. But I'm alive to the fact that many things are changing now. Just take an example of the sweep on, for example, the African ideology of things to do with homosexuality, in spite of the fact that they had even noted it with World Bank money or IMF money. Africa has taken a stand in terms of that perspective. So the point I'm trying to say is that because the Africa you're talking about is no longer the other colonial or neo-colonized Africa, Africa is alive to the fact that we have power and potential to even be better. I read a book called Africa as the Next Superpower. As a continent, as a people, we have that potential, and that's the point I'm trying to say. So that when you argue in terms of AI and the ability for AI to catch up,
I agree with you,
yes, sir,
to the extent that both of us acknowledge that there is a certain environment that has to happen if the, in quotes, uniform wealth distribution is to happen.
Right.
And that is
so that's where I disagree when you say Sam Altman has this utopian view.
No. I was very particular that if to some extent I would regard it as utopian to a certain extent, because, and then I gave the social construct or the environment in which that view could actually become a logical possibility.
Okay.
At least one of the arguments I used were from the World Economic perspective.
Right.
The other argument I'm giving is from the Alive Africa perspective,
right.
an Africa that is coming to understand its
and
its
even
right,
to back up your
potential.
point, when you say your friend who is now coming up with this AI that is African sensitive, if I use that word. To me, those are the things I'm trying to say.
Transcend.
Yes, and even when you're doing your chatbot, you're trying to incorporate,
local content.
the local content in the sense that we're trying. So that's the kind of thing, the frog leap that we're talking about. So I'm looking at a situation that now, whether come sunshine, come rain, and also with this new world order, the idea of one world system, the big brother system. There is no way we're going to escape. There's no way we're going to escape. You know that, my brother. You know that, my brother. So, yeah, I'm excited in the context of AI, in what Sam Altman says that it's the question of...
Why would you find that system inescapable?
Because that's where the world is going, whether you like it or not. To use someone's pride, whether you pray about it or not.
Are you relying on the biblical prophecy, or you are relying on your analytical?
My friend called Barunya told me one time that you see religion or salvation, whatever spirituality, it blocks reason. So I don't want to argue in terms of that concept. I would like to argue it from the concept of just 1 minute. I would like to argue the concept of common sense, right? So some of the proponents of AI, including the godfather of AI, is called I think Geoffrey or something, plus your guy, Stephen. Hawking,
yeah.
Yes. About 3 guys actually were making propositions in terms of what would be the tomorrow of AI. And I could see, and some of the things were debatable. Even the things that Steve Jobs was trying to table before us. Even the things that Bill Gates was trying to table before us. Even the things that, what's his name? Elon Musk was trying to say about self-driving cars. You just mentioned about that. Speed tubes and stuff like that. All those things are going to happen. So whether we like it or not, I was in Europe and I could see that now they're actually creating special roads for trucks that are going to use electricity. They have
trams,
yes, not trams. Forget about the trams. They have now trucks, heavy trucks like buses and stuff like that. The trams are already there, but now the buses will be carrying luggage. So I know that these things Africa can frog leap and actually accommodate them in just a trick of a second because we have the potential and the will and the zeal. The argument is if you and I can agree on the same table without stigmatizing or without being biased in any concept, believing that we can be as good as anybody in the world, I'm telling you we have a future.
So that's why I had wanted to make a comment on intelligence, that intelligence, like Altman says, that there will be some level of democratization of intelligence. It is just an assumption that white people are more intelligent than black people. Race is not... I wouldn't argue that race and intelligence are mutually exclusive. Is it exclusive or exhaustive? Whatever it is. But the point really is that I wouldn't argue that there is a relationship between race and intelligence, because there are very intelligent people in Uganda, there are very intelligent people in China. In fact, it has been said that if admission at American universities was entirely purely on merit, the highest population you would see there is Chinese and Indians. You understand? Because they have a kid starts, let's say, like at a very early age, being trained in the field of mathematics and the like, which is not happening in many parts of the world. So this kid is going to come in SAT scores like 100%. You understand? You get that,
right? And
if you are using that to admit people, you're going to find millions of people from Asia really S-ing over scores and those tests and that sort of thing.
We'll have another debate on intelligence. I've got to learn.
Yes. But before I go into that, I think earlier on I told you just a little bit to follow up to the debate of intelligence. I told you that I'm one of the people that really do not fancy IQ tests, which started at the Simon Barnett scale and is no longer really serving the purpose for which it was invented. So I'm not. I have my personal reservations as far as intelligence is concerned, but I am burning within my soul to respond to, you called him Balonyoa, who said that religion blocks reason. It's a fallacy of its own kind, in my opinion. With all due respect, I might not know him, but
you will invite him one time to.
Yeah, but Alfred Nord argued that men became scientific because they expected law in nature, and they expected law in nature because they believed in the lawgiver. There has been a very huge debate recently between Oxford mathematician John Lennox with the Canadian psychologist Jordan Peterson around the idea of scientific anti-realism and where religion plays a role within the scientific revolution, which explains why people like Malcolm, James Clerk Maxwell, Isaac Newton almost wrote an 800-page book around his perspective of God and his perspective of religion and things like that. And so it would really be, if you look at the general word logos and intelligent design and things like that, scientists like Alvin Plantinga, it would really be a bit, in my opinion, and I'm not the best person out there, but at least in my opinion, it would really be fallacious to argue that religion blocks reason, because at the end of the day, much of the propaganda, much of the conflict between science and religion in the recent past has actually been discovered to have been a very huge propaganda where people believe that there cannot be a reconciliation between science and religious ideologies. However,
the reason why I know, because if I bring in another concept, then you will actually lose your debate in terms of that the comparison. You know why? Because then I would ask salvation as opposed to religion. And you know that will take a different trend.
No. By the way, salvation versus religion, it's not, they're not at odds. It's just that these are purely, let's look at them as pure English words.
No.
You understand?
Rather than using them in terms of pure English words, in terms of the true interpretation, you know where I'm going and you know what I'm talking about.
This is the thing. This is the thing. Like, even if you went really through the actual meaning. Many people, a research was done, and many Christians were not identifying as religious, were identifying as rather spiritual. You understand? Because
spiritual.
Yeah, perhaps by intuition they have figured out that Christianity is more than a series of rituals, which religion tends to
I know, and when you read the books of people like Dr. Aslan, I think you probably read that book, Jesus of Nazareth the Zealot. Have you read that book?
No.
He was on CNN for some time until he was actually banned. His argument was, this is the guy who was actually another graduate in the New Testament, a master's in the New Testament, and also a PhD, and he's a Muslim. And Dr. Aslan was saying that I just don't agree. I don't disagree with the fact that Christianity or religion or whatever, not Christianity, but Christianity is one of those facets or those roads that would lead you to heaven. I just think that Islam offers better metaphors for me in terms of understanding that would lead me. In fact, he didn't dispute the presence of Jesus Christ of Nazareth. He said, in fact, the scriptures correlate Jesus Christ, other than the fact that there's a lot of things that Jesus Christ does. But he said in the scripture, somewhere it says that, are you talking about Jesus, the brother of so and so? So it was evident enough for him to comply and say, this guy has never existed. But anyway, I don't want us to go into that debate, because I want us to go back to AI in terms of comprehending the spirit of AI and what AI can do. we have agreed that without stigmatization or planting sweeping statements, the argument is that AI has the potential to put us on the same platter.
Exactly.
And that's perhaps the bigger point that Sam Altman was actually trying to make. And that's what I was trying to rebut in terms of bring you to that consensus that the point is that regardless of those, we will be able to come and perhaps even become better in many concepts. Just like we have pronounced ourselves, and where I say we, I'm understood to mean the black man in that context. But anyway, in terms of takeaways, what do you think would be the best thing that AI can do for Uganda? Let me Ugandan contextualize that.
So, since you are starting from the perspective of a leveled field in terms of AI, let's say like it's inclusive. It's bringing together people across the world, and why AI would have a potential to level the ground is because the effects it would have in America would significantly be similar or the same to the effects that it would have in Uganda. So if you applied AI within the Ugandan context, ultimately what the results that you're going to see are the same results that you're going to see within the United States context or the Germany context, something like that. But to answer your question a little bit more directly, I would look at AI as a technology, and then AI and its applications. So you have a technology and then its applications. The idea is that it's an enabler that is there to enhance different things in different capacities, categories, sectors, and stuff like that. So if you look at AI, for example, in the business world, AI alone has changed the way we look at research and the way we look at information and the way we interpret information. It is only through the power of AI that we can see the idea of prediction. I was looking through, for example, how the Rothschilds family gained dominance within the European market, and partly what gave them leverage was something called financial speculation and knowledge, in a sense that they were able to understand the patterns of where things were going, have predictions around forex trading and things like that, and were one of the first guys to engage in that sort of business. Now, within the Ugandan context, if you look at researchers, businesses, AI has the power to give you prediction. You can know in real time with just a little bit, with a little probability of it not happening. Like for example, at the time we're discussing a company in Canada called Blue Jay that predicts taxation law. In other words, it tells you that if you have this case in taxation, you are more likely going to win the case or lose the case. And it has got a 95% success rate in its predictions. Now that's what I'm talking about, with the probability of going wrong with the current strength of AI machines is absolutely small. With the case of Blue Jay, it's 5%. So if you look at it within the Ugandan context, then we would really have many businesses, researchers, academic institutions really have the ability to come up with a lot of predictions. In other words, it would take back the statement that I made earlier in this discussion that there is no evidence from the future. So through AI, you would actually be able to get a glimpse of what the future could look like, and that sort of future alone can shape policy. It can shape decision making. It can create. We're discussing at a time that one of the challenges that we have as a continent all across the world is the lack of leaders that can articulate a particular vision of which world we should exist in. Now AI can make that possible. You with the predictions, with things like that, you're actually able to tap into what sort of world we should become. I mean, all the animations that usually come through movies are a reflection. You were telling me about, you're a movie guy, science movies guy. You were telling me of concepts that were acted out in movies before they actually become a reality. Now that is actually simulation. So you want to see what sort of world would it be with robots. I mean, people, let's say, like play Terminator.
That very question, by the way, was asked of Elon Musk. In fact, Elon Musk is a movie guy also. Almost every point he relates it to movie.
So in that sort of regard, you are able to simulate what the future could look like.
Absolutely.
And that's the power of AI. I talked about research. Do you know, like, there are 8.5 billion searches in Google every day? Now, in Uganda, there are lots of searches in Google. I do not have a particular statistics of what Uganda entails particularly. But at least I know that we have 3.4 million Ugandans that are on Facebook. Facebook is blocked in Uganda, but at least according to online data report, we would average around 2.2 million active users per month. Now that's a significantly high number of people. So you're having 2.2 million people on Facebook, and perhaps 500,000 people on Instagram, and a similar number on Twitter. And all these people are every day giving out information or data about themselves, about their perspective of things on the internet. Now, with AI, through a concept called how do you call it? Sentiment analysis, data mining. You can extract data from the texture mining. That's what I was looking for. So texture mining, through texture mining, you can do sentiment analysis. You can understand what people are looking for from the internet. What are their behavioral patterns? In fact, there was a company called Cambridge Analytica, and this company capitalized on mining insights from people, about people, using their social media data, and then incorporating that mined information into particular strategies to control how people think. And they use something called the ocean strategy. Ocean is just an abbreviation of a certain contraction. You have things like your level of agreeableness, extroversion, things like that. So they were looking at that to control society, and they were saying that you just have to control 0.1% of the population, and then you would ultimately control that particular community. Now, all that is AI at play.
Yes, and that's what I talk about in sports decoding. One, the book that we wrote in terms of sports decoding, sports analytics, the ability to predict and partake and analyze because of the replication of information. But the question that I wanted to ask, and I could see Sam Ahmed, when in the interviews, he's always afraid of one question. I could see, and I just don't know whether they fear asking him that question, but let me ask you that question. Don't you think that ChatGPT and the likes are actually preying on people's information and therefore plagiarizing and taking information without consent?
Yeah, there are already lawsuits against companies like OpenAI in that sort of regard.
So yes or no?
Yes, that's a fact.
And that's a super truth. And
it's exactly why Elon Musk, I don't know if he was pretending or whatever, but at some point he put a restriction on X, that is Twitter, in terms of how many tweets you could actually be able to read a day. Why?
Even ChatGPT, by the way.
Why was that done? He gave a reason that there are many people that were engaging in massive, overwhelming data scraping. So data scraping is ultimately simply fetching information from different places, mining it, and at the end of the day, like, it's a bit safe because you are able at some level to manipulate or program the output and how the output, or in other words, the answer, how it comes out. For example, when you ask ChatGPT, let's say like who was the first president of, let's say, like America, it will give you an answer in a certain format. If you checked that particular format for plagiarism checkers on the internet, you might really not be successful at finding a particular website that references it exactly like that, because they have predetermined the outcome, they have predefined the outcome, and at the end of the day, like, it's hard to sell that I got this information from Lubogo, because I'll come to suigeneris law app, get data from there, put it in a system. The system processes it because data goes through processing and things like that. And then I define the output, however the information is to be.
Look like,
I could even say that I want this information to come out in audio. And in that sort of regard, how are you going to check audio plagiarism? And unless, of course, you have models like Whisper, and they have like live connectivity to the internet, and they can scroll through quite a lot of data sets in that sort of regard. So that's where the challenge is, but ultimately there is no doubt about that. Facebook, after the Cambridge Analytica saga, before then, there's something called the Facebook Graph API Explorer. So you get access to the Graph API of Facebook, you use it, you can build an app on top of it, you can build an analytic tool on top of it, you can build a system on top of it. So ideally, before then you could build a system. We built one, I remember, with my brother, that would analyze any sort of social media page. So whether it's for you, whether it's for 70, whether it's for who, like it could give you analytics. You understand? But after that saga, they started to restrict that sort of analysis to only when at least you have admin rights on those particular pages. And how they would authenticate that is by giving you particular tokens and stuff like that. However, with Twitter, I think it's largely possible with platforms like Twint that can sort of allow you to write Python scripts and you do some specific analytics, something like that. So yeah.
And YouTube, I was looking at YouTube actually. One of the guys we work here at Suigeneris, a young man called Benjamin, I think, also introduced me to that YouTube that does the analytics for you. And can be able to relate and tell you who is doing what or something for it here.
Yes. So yeah, that's really the world of, as far as data is concerned. Of course, some Outman would really. There are a lot of licenses that you need to. There is a data processor that has to happen.
This is where I see this.
Like even if I got data from you, there is something called data normalization. So I can proudly get information with impunity from your website. Let's assume it's whatever website in the world. It's a database. It has data. So I have a process in place. In fact, I created a certain process. Remember, like the other talk I attended, how to use open data to create AI systems. So there's a process I created, and within that process, there is something called data normalization. Under there, I can play around with whatever I want. I can data cleaning and normalization. I remove particular text that I am not interested in. I can remove names of people that were in your data set. I give them other names. I can remove numbers. There's just a lot to play around with, and of course there are much more detailed processes alongside the architecture.
And I'm imagining, Jonathan, that yes, that's possible, but I wouldn't feel worried about that if I was Sam Altman. I mean, the argument is I have this incredible AI concept that I would like to sell, but perhaps the bigger point is for it to be a credible source of information. Yeah? Let's look at Wikipedia. Remember how Wikipedia started? Wikipedia, everyone was like, that's a shana, that's a fake thing, that's now today. Wikipedia is actually being quoted even in schools and stuff like that.
Elon Musk still trashes Wikipedia.
I know. I mean,
the idea really with Wikipedia there is that the challenge with Wikipedia, of course, it's an encyclopedia, and they leverage the power of volunteers across the world who keep updating information, creating new pages, editing information to ensure that it is an up-to-date encyclopedia. Okay,
and that's the point I'm trying to say. You
However,
see, just a minute, before I want to drive my point home. Yes, I agree with you. You said Elon Musk quashes that. I would argue one person who said that Donald Trump quashes that, and the guy replied and said, I have never looked at Donald Trump as a standard of right or wrong. So I'm not saying that I'm not relating to that.
I was actually
I agree with you. I know. Just making sense. I'm just pulling your leg.
Yeah.
So the point I'm trying to say is this: that even as we argue this, I would imagine if I was Sam Altman, I'll simply create a substantive, chart that can accredit and even reference, right? And say this information belongs to a credible source, called so and so. I know I'm told there's AI that does that, by the way. There's AI that are able to do that for you. Because whether we like it or not, that's where AI is going to go. Because obviously, Ahmed cannot simply say, I'm the giant of all information. Everything comes from me. We all agree that what he's doing is nice, but the danger is that there's a lot of information on the net, right? And there's a possibility of information, and that's why you remember ChatGPT 3.0 used to say this information is subject to error and blah blah blah. 3.5 now doesn't categorically makes it that way. 4, on the other hand, is a little bit more, cleaner. 5 perhaps will be, guess what?
So the thing here is really, at some point you would bring in the idea of truth and its dynamics, its different dynamics, but let's first put that at bay. Let me go back to the point I wanted to make with Wikipedia, because it will bring out the point very well. So the most important thing, really, like you've said about information, is not really just the output or the procession of that information, but the source of that information. Is it a credible source of information? So Elon Musk is one of the guys that have openly trashed Wikipedia for a very good reason, because when you're relying on volunteers across the world, and these different volunteers, I'm actually an editor on Wikipedia. I can edit a page. It's not a privilege. Everyone can go create an account and start uploading information on Wikipedia. Now, irrespective of a perspective, and we could manufacture a source, let's say like of authority, and then quote it and put it in Wikipedia. Now, how has Wikipedia retaliated? Wikipedia has retaliated by creating a number of avenues by which edited information can be authenticated. It has created, for example, you have the ability to create a watch list. If you create a page, you can be a watcher to that page, in that any edit that happens on that page, you're aware of what has happened, so you can actually authenticate whether it's right or wrong. It has also created there are also pages that cannot be edited, like Donald Trump's page is locked, it has a padlock. Not everyone can edit it. Now, that sort of prevents unnecessary propaganda, let's say, from being referenced about particular people. So it's the same thing as what would you really categorize as a credible source of information? What could you categorize as an authority in terms of information? It's partly why courts of law, the law, as a lawyer, you definitely understand that there has been the freedom in terms of what sources of information you can be able to cite in court has been largely limited because of what the judges want to listen to and because of what is categorized as authoritative sources of information. I was having a discussion with one of the judges in the High Court of Tanzania, and I'm proud to say that we have judges that are sensitive about how far technology is going and how technology is evolving. We're actually looking for ways on how to get beyond legal personhood. We are looking for ways of getting information from the internet, especially from chatbots, especially, and using such platforms as a credible source of information that can be quoted in court.
And I think that's the future I'm talking about.
We're exploring those avenues with that particular judge again, and he is really a passionate gentleman. He's in Tanzania. He's in the High Court of Tanzania. He was talking about how behind, for example, the judiciary is in that you come in court and you're like, Your Honor, the information is in the cloud. So the judge is asking for where he is imagining a literal cloud. He's already confused.
I know.
So that's why partly, by the way, I'm very, very passionate about digital transformation, just beyond building tools for the public, but disrupting as well the judiciary, the law firms, things like that, because there has to be, if we are to achieve a meaningful participation, it has got to be sustainable, it has got to be inclusive, but it has also got to be a bit leveled, in a sense that judges would admit that we are not, we are not demigods that memorize the entire constitution. I mean, some lawyer who was this week was lambasting the judges, some judges, and he was giving me his frustration, telling me that, can you imagine that there are cases that are decided on, and then they will say that the judges unanimously agreed on a certain point, and when you come to check for Lubogo's judgment, instead of Lubogo giving his personal judgment,
he says, I agree
exactly. And of course, he was diagonizing
I know
that's with a bit of laziness.
I know that's the danger we have. But for those of you who are interested in research, I keep taking notes because I learn every day in terms of the discussions. But you may want, especially research in terms of AI, you may want to look out for superpower. One that does a lot of research in terms of AI. You may want to look out for Jenny AI, and then then Genito AI is another incredible one. You may also want to look out for Mendeley. Mendeley is quite popular, but also has now accommodated or incorporated AI. There's also Unredo. Unredo is another incredible one. Then Zetero, EndNote, Notion, Scholarly, Connected Papers, Stite AI, Research for Life, Elicit, Trinka, and then Connect. But Trinka and Elicit is also super great. But for you who want to check out plagiarism on ChatGPT, you can also look out for ChatGPT 0, because that's another aspect that may help in terms of curbing AI. I was having a discussion recently when I was invited in some university, and I was telling my audience that if I was a lecturer, I would let students go in with whatever they want, including phones and including ChatGPT, and I would still guarantee you that they will still fail if they had to fail anyway. Because you see, this is the point. You don't think you're going to lock these guys out. Today we are saying we don't want phones in exams, but time is going to come, whether you like it or not.
So what's your argument for?
My argument is for us to accommodate, to acclimatize, and to understand how we can be able to catch up with the present norms, and how we can be able to regulate. The word is regulate. Regulate, not only regulate in the concept of narrowing people down in terms of their thinking abilities, but thinking outside the box. Give them the option. If someone outsmarts you, you don't have to hate them and muzzle them.
So you have said thinking outside the box.
And throwing the box away.
And throwing the box away in that regard. But someone would argue that the fact that you're giving this kid the ability to move in the exam with the phone dismisses thinking entirely.
No, it doesn't. Actually, it actually increases their thinking ability. How does it do? Because you must understand that these kids, whether they like it or not, immediately they get out of the exam, they still have access to their phones.
Yeah.
And they're not going to live in the exam in the premise of the exam for the rest of their life. Listen, they're not going to live in the premise of the exam for the rest of their life, right? They're going to compete with the society outside the what? The exam. You understand? That's where the real life is. So you have to prepare them not to pass exam, but to live and thrive in the world.
And then someone would say, why not abolish exams completely?
Time will come. Listen, and I'm telling you this. Do you know why they're introducing Vivas? Vivas were never there before. Yeah. Do you know why they introduced interviews? Even with you've graduated summa cum laude, or magnum cum laude.
Yeah.
People are saying, yes, the papers are good, but let's hear from him or her. They even give you probationary period.
I would actually be very passionate to see such a world where there's really, the idea of it's absurd, and again, this is purely my opinion. It's absurd that you could see, let's say, like a kid in pre-primary school having like 10 numbers of homework or 100 numbers of homework. I just don't understand such a system. I don't know if I grew up in a certain backward world, but the idea that we are fascinated. We think books and academics is everything. It should occupy the central focus of our thinking systems. At home, we should be revising physics, looking through 100 numbers of homework. At school, we should be reading books, all in the preparation
of passing an exam
of a particular exam. And someone was saying, like, how can someone study for 6 years and just one set of examinations determine their fate? That this one is not a doctor, absolutely. This one is not a lawyer.
Absolutely.
You get that sort of perspective.
And you'll understand that the majority of people, I have high respect for academics, but you'll understand that the movers and the shakers of this world, if you really analyze them, have not been people who are categorically within the academy or in classes. I'm, with all due respect, I mean, you want me to tell you
started with a disclaimer.
I agree that anyone can go there, but the movers and the shakers of this world, I've seen incredible guys, gifted guys who really have not gone into traditional school.
There is a difference then between schooling and education.
Absolutely.
Or rather, attending class and having knowledge. That is why.
And the kind of preparation we do give our students in terms of accommodating. So that's why my point is, if there is anything that is new in terms of invention, rather than telling people don't go there, you're wasting your time, because the world is going to catch up and it's going to overtake us. Prepare yourself, equip yourself, present yourself so that you can be able to examine them on the basis of what is latest. That to me would make a better individual, because whether we like it or not, the world is changing and we have to change with that. What would you say in conclusion for our audience in terms of a discourse? What do you think what is at your heart that you may feel people need to know? Feel free to speak on anything in terms of what you feel is evident.
Yeah, so I would really very much urge you for a digital world. I am not to the extreme of Larry Page, who argued that we should have digital consciousness and was looking at Google becoming some sort of a digital god. But I would really want our community to understand that the technology is here. AI is not the future. That's why people say, that's what people usually want to say, that AI is the future. That's the future. AI is here. The future is here. You understand? The future is here, and it has already disrupted. ChatGPT has led to a loss of tens of thousands of jobs because of, ever since its advent. When the e-commerce industry as a trend started to boom, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, Facebook went into hire, Shopify went into hire because they felt that the new social construct was going to be sustainable. But guess what? Earlier this year, Facebook laid off over 20,000 people. Shopify laid over 10% of its workforce.
If there's any lesson that the world teaches us today in terms of artificial intelligence, is that I think, and to me I like it. I like it because it brings out the best of us. I would not say it's a question of survival for the fittest, but I think each one of us, like Dr. King said, all you need, you know, it's not by size or height that you win or lose. Be the best at whatever you do. And his argument was, it may not be a pine on top of a hill, be the shrub in the valley, but be the best shrub on the side of the river. So the argument is that, to me, it has created opportunities for us to learn to first of all acclimatize, but to understand that perhaps we need to find our niches. That's the word I'm gonna say. And we need to rebrand our education systems.
Yeah, so I wanted to just make a small clarification that the 20,000 guys that were laid off, for example, from Meta, were not exactly only because of AI. It is because the trend had been misread. And I wanted to differentiate that AI is not any sort of trend that comes around and a certain genius out there is thinking that it's actually going to go. AI is a revolutionary, it's a redefining technology of our generation. just like you see the internet came, it's not going back. You understand? Right. Just like the web came through and it's not going back. So that's how AI is.
I like that, and that's the point I want the world to comprehend.
Yeah,
including every lecturer perhaps and every school or university for that purpose.
And so you are not really just going to say that well, this trend, it's just a trend, it will pass. Well, there's some lazy guys out there, those are the guys that are actually trying to use this.
And that's not true.
This is actually something that is like adapt or be left behind.
Absolutely, excellent message.
This is something that is going to change how we look at business, how we look at each other, what intelligence entirely means.
Right.
I would agree with Sam Altman in that sort of regard.
Right.
Absolutely. By the way, I would like to clarify that I wasn't disputing him entirely, even though, like I say, that I would first go to the negative perspective of things. But it's going to redefine what we call intelligence, what we call a genius. I saw Silva Kayondo, I think one of the smart lawyers in Uganda.
My hobby, I know him.
Yeah, he was saying that gone are the days of a lawyer that, for example, presumes to know everything, quoting things from here and there. Now that alone, the fact that you have, imagine a world in which you had access to the Constitution, everything in your pocket, on your phone. You understand? That is the world. Law Council uses physical libraries to validate whether or not you should get a license as a law firm. But I was having a discussion with my friend Emmanuel Sevijo, and I was telling him that how do you see us developing online libraries? Because if you're talking about, let's say, like African context, and we're going to build technology systems from that context, then we need information that is readily available on the internet, readily available online, at least all in soft copy.
And that's happening, my brother. Yeah. That's happening. Even right now, the amendments actually, the Companies Act has been amended, Section 4, in terms of removing Form A, for example, as an amendment. You no longer have to file those specific forms. You can actually make a company online and do everything. So, and even with ECMIS, right, and business registration also by virtue of the Business Registration Act and regulations there for still Section 4. So we have all these amendments that are, so like you said, it's here with us to stay. The earlier we comprehend it, the earlier we embrace it, rather than hate it. I think that's where the future belongs. Once again, my name is Isaac Christopher Lubogo. Greetings from Sui Generis. I've been having a wonderful discussion with the man and the only one friend, Jonan Katende from Sui Generis, but also works with Chatbot, right? Justice Chatbot. He's an incredible, brilliant young man who does a lot of research in artificial intelligence and the likes. So we will have another discussion, God willing. But thank you, sir, for your attention and for the ability to come and have an intellectual discourse with us.
Thank you for welcoming me.
God bless, sir. Thank you.